The British flag, the Union Jack, Old Flappy! We already know that the American flag stands for freedom, that the French flag stands for surrender, and that the EU flag stands for Germany. So what does the British flag stand for? To some people it's a symbol of pride and togetherness. To others it's a symbol of exclusion and hate. And to others still, it's a beach towel or lawn furniture. So today we're looking at the whole business of the British flag, and why a garish piece of fabric can inspire such strong feelings in so many people. And maybe, along the way, I can figure out what it means to me. The first thing to understand about the British flag is that England isn't Britain. The English often forget this, but the other countries that share Britain can get a bit fussy about it. There's also Scotland, Northern Ireland, and the other one. I think it's called Dolphins? And the Union Jack represents the intermingling of all these countries and their own separate national flags. The English flag is named after the country's patron saint, who was neither English nor real. Today, St. George is best known as the medieval world's foremost pest control technician, specialising in oversized lizards. But during his heyday, most George lore focused on the many tortures he endured for his faith, where he is often killed and tortured in various horrible, very medieval ways before being resurrected again, tortured some more, beheaded, and then crucified on a big bloody cross. And that's where the English flag comes from, or at least what it's supposed to represent. In similar fashion, Scotland's St. Andrew wasn't Scottish and was crucified on a big old slanty cross, also known as a saltire. St. Andrew, however, didn't slay dragons and instead earned his sainthood through cronyism, as he was one of Jesus' fishing buddies. After centuries of skirmishes, battles, wars, and Mel Gibson movies, King James I became the first monarch to rule over both Scotland and England in 1603. To celebrate this union, he commissioned two flags that were the result of the English and Scottish flags bumping uglies. This one was used in England, and this one was used in Scotland, but both weren't used very often. It wasn't until the 1707 Acts of Union that this more familiar design became official. Ireland didn't join the Union until 1801, at which point these lovely little red stripes were added to represent the country and presumably to make the flag flap faster. The stripes come from the saltire of St. Patrick, who wasn't Irish, was English, didn't die on a cross, but he gets one anyway, I guess because everyone else had one. Now, the observant among you will notice that this isn't the current Irish flag, which is green, white and orange, and usually a bit brown from where someone spilt Guinness on it. And that's because most of Ireland broke up with Great Britain in 1921. In fact, much like St. Patrick, his flag was an English import, representing the Order of St. Patrick, started by King George III of England. Are you still with me? The Union Jack has a less than stellar reputation in Ireland, where it has also earned the nickname the Butcher's Apron, owing to Great Britain's long-standing habit of murdering, subjugating and forcing their language on the Irish people, which was regrettable and a complete waste of time because we still can't understand a bloody word they're saying.
Missing making the lambs and everything, the sheep, just count out a nice bit of money, like.
Of course, the Irish were not the only people to have the Union Jack forced on them. There was this thing called the British Empire that planted Union Jacks on flags across the world, while simultaneously conquering around 23% of its total land area. At one point in time, 49 separate Commonwealth countries had the Union Jack squeezed in somewhere on their national flag. And while some of these look quite cool, others look like someone just slapped a JPEG into a Word document. I'm looking at you, Union of South Africa. That king-sized, double-stuffed, char-grilled colony on the other side of the Atlantic had the Union Jack on their flag until the rebellion of 1776, which we can all agree, in hindsight, was a mistake. But one American state still flies the Jack in the corner of their flag. Hawaii, the birthplace of surfing, controversial pizza, and Barack Obama, allegedly. Hawaii was never a British colony. but it flew the full-blown British flag in 1843 for 5 months. This was because an overzealous Navy commander named Lord George Paulet invaded and occupied Hawaii without the consent or even knowledge of the British state. Paulet destroyed all the Hawaiian flags he could find and raised the British flag on every separate island of Hawaii, and then instituted himself and 3 of his buddies as the provisional government. When his superior arrived to see what Paulet had done, he immediately stripped him of his rank and apologised to King Kamihalaha III for the inconvenient invasion. And in typical laid-back style, the king said, "Don't worry about it, bro." Or like, words to that effect. And that is a thing that really happened. This flag is getting hot. Now, you might have been told that it can only officially be called the Union Jack if it's flown from the bows of a warship. But this is actually a relatively recent idea and is total bumwash. The terms have been used interchangeably by the military and the public for centuries. In World War I, it appeared on the wings of planes like the Bristol Scout, but rarely in the mud of the trenches, as carrying a bunch of primary colours amongst the khaki-clad soldiers was the equivalent of wearing a big old neon sign that said, "Blow my brains out." Instead, the flag found a place at home in wartime propaganda. By the end of World War II, Union Jackery had never been more fashionable. It was raised in Berlin as a sign of victory, and at home it became a uniting symbol amongst all the rubble and spiralling national debt. While anyone on these rain-soaked islands of sheep and concrete can identify with the flag, there's one family who's associated with it more than anyone else. The royal family, also known as the Windsors, also known as the lizard people of Tourette Mangoo. In the same week that Sherpa Tenzing and some British guy planted a Union Jack on Earth's pointiest point, 56% of the British nation tuned in to watch a 25-year-old have a very expensive hat put on her barnet. That's British for head? This was the coronation of Queen Elizabeth in 1953. 1953? How old is this bitch? And the event was accompanied by a forest of flag waving. To commemorate the event, the Union Jack was printed on anything that even resembled a solid. Today, the amount of British flag merchandise you can buy is absolutely mind-boggling. I even got this face mask on Amazon for £2 bob. Oh, which is British for pounds. Which is British for money. Unlike the flagophiles across the Atlantic, the British have never made a big stink about being respectful of the flag. Nor are there many laws that govern its flight. Technically, you're not supposed to deface it or fly it upside down, but people do it all the time, even in official capacity. In fact, I've been doing it for this whole video, and I'm pretty sure none of you've noticed. There's actually no law that enshrines the flag as the official flag of the UK. It's only become so through custom and practice. You can even burn it, if you like. The one thing you're not supposed to do is attach advertising to it. When the 1960s came around, the Union Jack went from being a symbol of imperial dominance and wartime victory to a piece of meaningless tat. Although we did manage to rub it in Germany's face one more time during England's victory at the World Cup final in 1966, and people haven't shut up about it since. 2 World Wars, 1 World Cup, yeah!
Some people are on the pitch, they think it's all over. It is now!
But the other thing that was all over was the British Empire. In the 1960s, the empire entered its final stage of terminal decline, as other nations wanted to design their own flags, as well as govern themselves and stuff. Across the world, the Union Jack just couldn't get it up anymore. But it was newly engorged at home by the swinging 60s. The Union Jack was omnipresent in 1960s pop culture. It was printed on t-shirts, miniskirts, album covers, sofas and supermodels. The Beatles made frequent use of it, and The Who virtually turned it into their own personal logo. And since then it's become an enduring rite of passage for every major British recording artist to shoehorn it into their wardrobe somehow. From David Bowie's coat to Jerry Halliwell's dress to Stormzy's stab-proof vest. It endures less because of its meaning and more because it's an eye-catching and cool piece of design. But there are some people who do take it seriously, and that's how the flag flaps its way into controversy. When Britain joined the EEC in 1973, most people were largely indifferent. But some people were real mad! In particular, a fascist group known as the National Front, whose heads were as devoid of hair as they were of grey matter. First founded by A.K. Chesterton, formerly of the British Union of Fascists, the National Front gained attention through their violent, flag-waving anti-immigration marches. Most notably the 1974 Red Lion Square disorders and the aptly named 1977 Battle of Lewisham. This was some nasty shit, basically. Time passed though, and eventually they did march into relative obscurity. But former members left to start the British National Party, which actually had some European election success in the mid-2000s. And former members of that would create Britain First, which is still aggravating the nation's anus to this day. And at time of recording, these people are currently posting clips on YouTube of them approaching asylum seekers in their accommodation and harassing and threatening them. Just saying, YouTube, you might want to look into that. These groups always use the flag in their promotional material and in their logos and on their marches, and are among its most enthusiastic flyers. Thanks to these ham-faced brainless cretins, the pant of the British flag has been stained with the liquid shit of racism. So much so that incredibly tedious debates about whether it's a racist symbol have plagued mind-numbing midday TV and pompous newspaper stink pieces for the last 20 years. But here's the thing that bugs me. If you insist the Union Jack is a racist symbol, then you are letting oxygen thieves like this define it for you.
It's the Islamic law. They've got their law. Obviously it's their law, isn't it?
Flags are symbols, and symbols are made up. Some have fixed meanings, while others have many. The important thing is what it means to you, and not letting other people's idea of what it means infect your meaning. Do you know what I mean? When I look at these migraine-inducing, contrasting colours, I'm reminded of all the contradictions that make up British culture. It represents my freedom to call the royal family a bunch of chinless, princess-murdering paedophiles whilst still kind of liking the Queen. It's about being polite and totally obscene, sometimes in the space of the same sentence. It's about calling your worst enemy mate and your best friend a cunt. It's knowing that British cuisine is basically inedible, but still eating a haggis shepherd's pie on Burns night. It's watching every James Bond movie over and over again, whilst acknowledging that they're nearly all shit. It's about being confused as to why anyone would choose to live on this miserable, rain-stained mud lump, and then welcoming anyone who does choose to come here with open arms. Hi everyone. Now that we're alone, I'd just like to let you know that next week I'm going to be making another ordinary guide. I've made one before on how to be a millionaire, and you can watch it up there. Yeah. I'm going to go now because it's getting real sweaty under this flag, but before I do that, I'd just like to thank all my patrons. Thanks for supporting me guys, and I'll see you soon. Bye.